Good afternoon, boys and girls, friends, lovers, children of all ages. Welcome to downtown Denver, Colorado. We're at the Bannock building.
I am the co-chair of the Colorado Latino Forum. I'm also a member of the Reimagine Policing Task Force, an endeavor that we took on almost a year ago today. And I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. And so I will ask you all to take a few moments of silence, and then we'll officially begin with our speakers. Today we acknowledge and pay respects to First Nations peoples, our indigenous communities in Colorado, including the Ute Mountain, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. And even the Aztec indigenous tribes made it to the southwest corners of Colorado. And we accept this land, their land, was ravaged and taken from them. They were abused, beaten, and killed. They were separated from each other, but remain here and still exist. And so we use this knowing today as we begin on this trajectory to correct systematic inequities and injustices. And so join me in uplifting this acknowledgement to the Creator as we stand here, present, with an open heart and an open mind to hear from our task force members about the thoughtful, comprehensive, equitable recommendations brought forth. Join me for a few moments of silence. Thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like for Pastor Davis to join us and get us officially started.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, awesome. First, I want to just start off before I kick it off. I want to recognize so many individuals, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow it down to those who were facilitators for the task force. I was the project coordinator, but the facilitators for the task force, you just met one, Sochi Gaitan. Also, we had Katie Leonard as one of our facilitators. These were individuals who volunteered from the community to lead out. We also had Dr. Jennifer Balliet, Dr. Jeff Lynn. I'm trying to go through my whole list right now. And then we also had, from a national perspective, Dan Boda from the Vera Institute for Justice, who also served as and Kim Morris. I can't forget Kim Morris. She is here with us today. And I just want to say thank you so much to the leadership team that made this initiative happen and made it possible. We are here today. This is what I'm going to start us off with. We are here today because of a senseless murder. A senseless murder that revolved around a possible counterfeit $20 bill. A man was murdered because of a possible counterfeit $20 bill. He was murdered by government forces known as the police department. His name was George Floyd. We are gathered here on this eve of the murder of George Floyd. And so if you would join me for a moment in silence as we remember George Floyd from Minneapolis, Minnesota. But even closer, right across the street from Denver, we had the senseless murder of Elijah McClain, who was doing nothing more than singing and walking home and minding his business. And again, the government, the police department was responsible for his murder. So would you join me at this time as we pay a memorial to George Floyd and Elijah McClain. Thank you. After the death of George Floyd, as you saw, the entire nation came together. I believe we came together because it was so obvious that this was one of the most egregious deaths that we had ever witnessed. Every time that there is a police murder, there's There's typically some kind of justification. The officers thought that he was reaching. The officers thought that he was going for something. The officers feared for their lives, etc., etc. But when we saw George Floyd underneath the knee of an executioner for over 8 minutes, it really did spark an awakening in the consciousness of America. And the entire nation, which ultimately led to the entire world, came together and said, enough is enough is enough. Matter of fact, I saw several individuals on social media who said that if America saw what was going on in America, they would send troops to protect Americans from its own government. This is where we are today. As a result of the protest that took place last year, the leaders, the community leaders in the city of Denver came together and said, we need to address not only policing, which we've done for so many years. We've talked about different holes that police should and should not use. We've had conversations about what munitions and how many guns an officer should have in their guns. We've had all these conversations, and we decided that it was time to expand the conversation to really have an in-depth conversation about what is public safety, period. I'll be honest with you, my friends, we have become somewhat lazy as a nation, and we have lost a lot of our innovation as a nation and have placed too much of the burden of community safety and the responsibility for public safety into a centralized police department, when the reality of the matter is we know. I'm going to read something to you from the report, and this was written by Lyndon B. Johnson in his presidential address on June the 27th, 1967. President Johnson said, "The only genuine long-range solution lies in an attack mounted at every level upon the conditions that breed despair and violence." All of us know what these conditions are: ignorance, discrimination, slums, poverty, disease, not enough jobs. We should attack these conditions, not because we are frightened by conflict, but because we are fired by conscience. We should attack them because there is simply no other way to achieve a decent and orderly society in America. In other words, there's no other way to really achieve public safety. And so the community came together after having several community town hall meetings where we asked two questions. Who should serve on this task force? And then second question, what are the issues that we need to tackle and really address? As a result of those conversations, we identified over 40 plus community organizations that joined together, along with community leaders and activists that joined together and said, how do we come up with some solutions to these problems that have been plaguing our communities for too many years? We convened on September the 3rd of 2020, and for 7 months, we did research, we had conversations, we brought in experts to talk to us about the various things that constitute public safety and policing, etc. And then we got together and identified 5 strategies to improve public safety, which will be talked about in just a moment, with over 112 recommendations. I'll end by saying this: we recognize that this is not the end-all be-all. This recommendations report does not mean that we're done after this is put out. No, this is just the launching pad. This is us saying we recognize that this is a community responsibility. This is an initiative, and this is a takeoff of an initiative to move our city, to move our nation in the right direction. So again, I want to thank everyone who was a part of this task force. Thank you so much. And I'm going to call on the next speaker to lead us into our next speaker, which is actually Carrie Joy. Please put your hands together with me for Carrie Joy.
Good afternoon, beautiful people. I'm gonna say all power to the people, and I need you to repeat after me. All power to the people.
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 Because where there's people, there's power. That's why we're here today. And so, I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the strategy. Well, one strategy specifically that we came up with collectively as a part of this task force. I just want to, and real quick, I just really want to thank the leaders of this task force. Dr. D, I just want to give you a lot of love and respect for everything that you've done. Sochi, you guys have been amazing throughout this entire process. So the first strategy is to empower the community with resources to adequately address socioeconomic needs and provide for their own public safety. And so the reality is, y'all, is that we know how to take care of ourselves. We protect each other. We defend each other. That is our duty. However, we find ourselves in a situation where our society defines safety based on terms that center the protection of property. The protection of property. And when we think of the historical context and the dynamics between property and property owners, we quickly realize that this definition of safety serves to dehumanize Black bodies, brown bodies, indigenous bodies, people living in poverty, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, women, disabled people, and too many more, while prioritizing the need for wealthy, cisgendered, often white men to maintain their property. That is not safety. That's not even safety for them, whether they'd like to admit it or not. This dynamic harms every single one of us, because whether they would like to admit it or not, whether we would like to admit it or not, our freedoms are intertwined. That is just a fact. So when we remember that we take care of us, we remember that safety is having uninhibited access to life-affirming resources like clean air, and fresh food, and clean water, and shelter from the elements. We remember that safety is having access to healthcare, including mental, sexual, and spiritual health. We remember that no individual on this planet deserves criminalization for claiming their access to those things. We remember that no individual deserves to be tormented, harassed, threatened, abused, neglected, or shamed for claiming their access to these things. We are here to demand follow-through from those who have been elected to represent us. They asked for a collective plan. Here it is. They asked to hear from the community. Here we are, and we've been here. They said that they were concerned about our Black and brown youth because of the trends of violence in our communities that serve as traumatic symptoms of the government-sanctioned violence that we experience every single day. So we centered our youth voices and defined healing on their terms. So as we present these policy recommendations, we do so from a place of understanding that safety comes from having the things you need to survive and to thrive. No one has the right to withhold from you what you know is necessary to survive and to thrive. So when we say we don't need more police officers in our neighborhood, and instead we need uninhibited access to the things that honor our humanity, like food that grows from the ground, or water that falls from the sky, or space to exist, things that you only make inaccessible when your priority is profit and control, and you rather create conditions of suffering rather than healing, evolution, and growth. But we know what we need. The Black Panther Party served as an example of how we take care of one another. That when we come together and gather the resources that we need to support one another, feed one another, heal one another, we can thrive. They also served as an example for self-defense, because let's remember that the party began arming themselves because of the response of the unchecked police brutality going on in our neighborhoods. But it's not just about arming yourselves. Self-defense includes doing whatever is necessary to have what you need for your body, your mind, and your spirit to be safe. So creating their own schools, clinics, healing centers, self-defense classes, community kitchens, teaching the importance of socialism and sharing in a society that hoards and then has the nerve to tell us that there isn't enough. That is our self-defense. We know how to take care of ourselves. We have done it for generations. We've done it even when we had the least. We do it in our mutual aid programs and our grassroots nonprofit efforts. We do it when we put a call out on social media to help pay somebody's rent. We do it when we show up at a protest against displacement. Do not believe the lie that we need overseers and oppressive structures that were designed to see us suffer. So when we say, defund the police, we give that money to the people, we mean that. We know what we're asking for. We know what we need. when we say abolish DPD and shift those resources to a place where we have what we need to be innovative and creative about our beautiful existence in this world, we know what we are asking for. We know how to take care of us. And these recommendations are a step in the direction that is necessary for us to have what we need to follow through for one another. And to follow through in a way that we don't have the stress, anxiety, and trauma that we've endured from colonialist practices like slave patrols, which have turned into the police. Y'all following me? Okay. George Floyd should be alive today. A piece of paper should have never left him lying in the streets, crying for his mother under the knee of his executioner. Breonna Taylor should be alive today. Michael Marshall should be alive today. Elijah McClain should be alive today. Antonio Blackbear should be alive today. Alexis Mendez Perez should be alive today. Jessica Hernandez should be alive today. And by any means necessary, we must defend the humanity of the people that are trying to live today. That is why we're here. To stop the bleeding, to heal the wounds of our community, and to take care of ourselves. So Mayor Hancock, City Council, Chief Pazin, Director Murphy, DA McCann, democracy is not about getting your way and building your career on the backs of the people you are supposed to serve. The people have spoken, and we have been speaking. And it is time that you actually listen and implement the will of these people. And we're here to make sure that you do. So all power to the people. 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 God bless you.
Good afternoon, Denver. How's everybody doing today? I'm glad to see y'all. You know, we've been on Zoom for 9 months, so it's glad to see everybody's beautiful faces in person. So I'm gonna talk about Strategy 2, the recommendations that came from Strategy 2. So Strategy 2 is to minimize unnecessary interaction of law enforcement and the criminal legal system with community. Denver residents reimagined a model of public safety that will minimize unnecessary police and criminal legal system involvement through two main avenues of action. One, decriminalizing offenses that pose no threat to public safety, such as the right to survive, the urban camping ban, criminalizing people for surviving on the streets. Two, implementing alternative emergency response options for situations where armed officer response does more harm than good, such as mental health crisis, such as anything involving not police interaction. So we don't want the police involved, so we want STAR involved. We want programs such as STAR involved instead of law enforcement to handle these type of situations. There's no need for armed officers in these situations, so support for this strategy among Denver community members was universally empathetic, not compassionate, empathetic, meaning we can empathize with those that have been victims of police violence. Support through statements from respondents with clearly positive attitudes towards. So some people in the group had positive attitudes towards law enforcement. I was not one of them. But intended to express concern over burden on police, while those from respondents with more negative attitudes, I guess that would be me, typically cited the harms caused by the misapplication of police. So we don't want the police at all. We want to abolish the police. That's the side that I'm on. Research increasingly suggests that the simplest and swiftest way to minimize this unnecessary contact is to what? Decriminalize certain offenses that pose no threat to safety to the public, often called survival crimes or quality of life crimes. These include offenses that pose no threat to the safety or the safety of the public, often called survival crimes or quality of life crimes. These include offenses like fare evasion, drug use and possession, public intoxication, and other low-level crimes, victimless crimes. Many such offenses are criminalized in recent decades as the ineffective war on drugs and I can't say this word.
That's all right, take your time.
Content, tough on crime rhetoric led to the rapid criminalization of behaviors that were disruptive and undesirable rather than dangerous. So we didn't want to see it. So we're going to criminalize it because we don't want to see it. And we said enough is enough of that. Police are trained for extremely specific circumstances, i.e. to respond to dangerous behavior. But as the list of criminal offenses has expanded over the decades, so too have the expectations upon them. Even the supplemental training and de-escalation tactics, the presence of armed police officers inherently accelerates interactions that can and should be resolved peacefully and without arrest. So this task force developed new alternatives to police response, and expanding those currently in place will protect the community and reduce the of the criminal legal system and free up law enforcement to tackle truly dangerous situations, actually going after real criminals, actually enforcing or protecting people from real crime, not acts of survival, not covering yourself with a tent, a tarp, a sleeping bag, any your own clothing, which has been deemed illegal for almost a decade, almost a decade here in the Mile High Income City. So it should be noted that this strategy strongly targets unnecessary interactions and in no way restricts access or availability of emergency services. So in other words, don't call the police for certain situations. We don't need the police. The police have done more harm than good. We can police ourselves, and we the people, we hire these people. They are public servants.
Amen.
So they are supposed to be doing our bidding, not the other way around. And the whole purpose of this task force, of this strategy, is to eliminate the harm that has been done. I would be amiss if I did not mention a woman by the name of Janet Van Lack, who dedicated her whole life to making sure that those that have mental illness were not treated like criminals, like her son was treated for years. So we should do a moment of silence for her because she died last year, and her work was influential in getting the STAR program in effect here in Denver, which is based off the Cahoots model, which come out of Portland, Oregon. So before I close, I am an advocate for the unhoused. I was unhoused for almost a decade. The police have not done me any good. They've done nothing but harm in my life experience. I was criminalized for surviving on the streets, for covering myself with a tent, a tarp, a sleeping bag, anything besides my own clothing was deemed illegal. So I know firsthand I can empathize with those of our unhoused neighbors that are suffering each and every day, each and every week from these sweeps, these traumatic displacements that the city, the mayor, city council continues to co-sign on. So we're saying, this task force is saying, look, enough is enough of this. We don't need the police to respond to these situations. People with mental health crisis, you need to call STAR. There's a number. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm sure somebody in this crowd knows the number that you can call instead of calling 911, because as Flavor Flav said back in 1990, 911 is a joke, and we don't need them. And with that being said, I plan to run for mayor in 2023, and I want to enforce all these recommendations on the Denver Police Department and the Denver Sheriff's Department. And before I close, Sheriff Elijah Diggins actually called me before I came here and gave me a good word. But the fact remains, y'all need to implement these recommendations, not now, right now, not later, right now. And we are going to continue to hold your feet to the fire to get you to enforce these recommendations ASAP. Thank you.
Can you hear me out there?
Yes.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. This is actually extremely important. This is more important than a lot of you might be able to imagine. We should have a larger crowd. If people were serious about reform, then a lot more people should actually be here.
Yes.
My name
come
is
on.
Abe Mustafa Arrington. I'm from the Second Chance Center. And my good friend and mentor, Hassan Abdul Latif, has called me down here to speak about reentry. Now I'm going to speak briefly about reentry, but honestly, the time for talking is over.
Come on.
The one thing that I wanted to say, first and foremost, what I wanted to do is I wanted to point out something that I think everybody is remotely familiar with. You probably remember some of these words from school, but I thought it was important that I actually reminded everybody today. This states, we the people of the United States,
Come on.
in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States. The problem is, good people, is that all too often, a lot of people, particularly people of color, including myself, this Constitution has not applied.
Come on.
And it's been to the detriment of this country that has happened. It is to the detriment of a lot of people who look just like me, that because the Constitution was not applied, that people like George Floyd, and I'm speaking about all the George Floyds, have been murdered
That's right.
by a police department that is supposed to protect and serve everybody in the community. That's why we are here today seeking justice and trying to reestablish the power to the people. So when we say power to the people, we mean all power to all people at all times. That is exactly what we want. Now, I was informed of this. I was told that this task force had came up with 112 recommendations that have been broken down into 5 strategies. And again, reentry, the one to which I'm supposed to speak, is just one of them. This is the third one. But I want to say this, with regards to these recommendations that they have been called, I refuse to refer to them as recommendations. What I am calling them is demands. They're not recommendations. We're not asking. We're not pleading.
on.
We're not begging for anything.
on.
The people in this building back here, they are servants. And I do not say that in disrespect. By definition, they are public servants.
That's right.
They are servants to who? We the people. We the people. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, to establish tranquility, to establish justice, we are making the demands that you implement these strategies. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a few of them to you, and you tell me if you disagree with any of them. Empower the community. Does anybody have any problem with empowering the community? No. The power is to who?
The people.
The people, the power to the people. The people who are back here, these public servants, know that they serve every last one of us. That is what they are supposed to be doing. How is that a problem? That's not a recommendation.
Come on.
If you do not want to do that, then get your ass out of this building. We'll find somebody else who can do it.
Come on.
We'll take you, we'll take anybody else out here who can go up in there and can do this job. Does anybody in this audience right now have a problem with empowering the community? No. Power to the people. Minimize unnecessary interaction with law enforcement. How is that a problem? The Constitution of the United States guarantees that you're supposed to be free from undue search and seizure. Let me tell you something. If I'm walking down the street, I'm minding my own business, I haven't done a damn thing, guess what? I'm not your job, Mr. Police Officer. Do not stop me. Do not stop this man. Do not stop this lady right here. And do not ask us where we're going, because it's none of your damn business. Doesn't mean I've committed a crime. It just means it's none of your damn business. I'm going home to be with my family. I'm going out to dinner. Power to who? Power to the people. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's how is that? Recommendation, no, excuse me, it's a demand. How is that a problem for anybody in this community? If you have a problem with that, then get your ass out. Okay? When it comes to reentry. Now reentry, this deals with mass incarceration, which happens to be one of the problems that we actually have, to heal the community from the harms of mass incarceration. That's one of the demands that we actually are making. Let me tell you something, everybody here, let me go full disclosure. I just got out of prison last year. I did over 30 years for a wrongful conviction. 30 years, I just got out last year. When I got incarcerated back in 1989, do you know what the operation cost of the Colorado Department of Correction was? It was around $16 million. I thought that was insane back then. Over the course of the years, it mushroomed up to nearly $1 billion. $1 billion. $1 billion. Where did your children's education fund go to?
Come
It
on.
went to build prisons because they had no intention of educating your children. They decided they already had a place for them. And it wasn't
Come
in
on.
college, it was inside a prison.
Come on.
Yeah, that's the school to prison pipeline. But there wasn't much schooling going on. That's what the problem is. So in order to heal the community from the problems of mass incarceration, what we need to do is we need to start really tapping down that funding that you got going to DOC, Department of Corrections, and the police department, and put that funding to where it's needed. To where? We the people. That's where it needs to go. For your children's education. How many people have problems out here getting health care? You need some of that money going toward that. How about that?
Come on.
That's what we need to do. Power to who?
The people.
We also need to have the role of the community more active when it comes to accountability. And guess what? We're going to do exactly that. Because if you can't agree with these demands to the public service in this building, what are we going to do? Get your ass out. We'll get somebody else who can. Because these are demands. They're not recommendations. Again, we're not begging. We're not pleading for any of this. You either agree to this, and we will find out what your names are, and we can ask you individually. We can poll you. We can call you. We can get you in front of the TV cameras. We say, do you agree with what this task force has actually told you that you need to do? You've had lawyers, you had councilmen, you had some people in the mayor's office until it became politically unexpedient for them to do so, who are involved in this task force. Why do you have a problem with power to the people?
Come on.
If you do not agree to this, then you need to leave.
Come on.
How can you be against social justice? How can you be against accountability?
Come on.
If you are against accountability, then chances are you're doing something up in these walls that you shouldn't be doing.
People to know. Come
And
on.
guess what? If you're doing that, then go ahead and take yourself and volunteer, lock yourself up in one of the damn prisons that you just spent $1 billion building and funding
Come
over the
on.
past 3 decades. That's what
Come
you can do. Okay? Power to who?
The people.
Power to the people. So now what we're doing is, when it comes to my branch, what we got, the Second Chance Center. Here's what we have to do, and I'm gonna tell you something that we're actually dealing with. We have people who are getting out as a result of mass incarceration. Because of the way the DOC has mushroomed into this monster and built this monster factory. And you're sitting here, you're letting people now out of prison after 30, I'm not talking literally, not just myself, you know, I'm not an aberration. 40 years straight incarceration. Family members have passed away, moved on, have nothing. Released from DOC into the community without an ID, without a social security card, given a $100 debit card and say, go on with your life. Person doesn't even know, even if they're from Denver, you can imagine how much has changed over the past 30 years. Don't know where to go to get half of these things they're telling them have to do, and told that they have to get a job immediately. And how are they supposed to do that if you don't have some type of reentry organization helping people to do this? This is what we're forced to do every day at the Second Chance Center. And we do it a lot. And we do it very well. But we need the people in these walls to be held accountable for this mess, and we need them to actually accrue more funding to help organizations like ours so we can do the work that needs to be done so we can have power to who? The people. That's what we're going to do. We're going to ensure, and right now we're going to turn everybody that's here today, you're now revolutionaries. You've all been drafted. This revolution will not be stopped. You're going to be held accountable for everything that we're actually demanding. We are not making recommendations. We're not asking, again, we're not begging you. We are telling you what you need to do to fix this mess. And part of the thing is, you're going to be held accountable. The people out here are going to be empowered. We're going to minimize the interaction of law enforcement. Again, do not bother me when I'm walking down the street. You know what I mean? You got somebody coming up out of a bank with a pistol in their hand, that's your job.
Come on.
I am not your job.
Come on.
George Floyd was not your job.
Come on.
Elijah McClain was not your job.
Come on.
Half of the people that you killed, you had no reason to stop them to begin with. That's what we're talking about. And you need to be held accountable when you do those kind of things. If you go to the doctor, he gives you the wrong medication. If you go to the surgeon, he performs the wrong surgery. He is held accountable. Don't tell me you have a hard job to do. We all have a hard job to do. Raising children is a hard job.
Come on.
And if you're doing it correctly, you're held responsible for it.
That's right.
Don't tell us that this is complicated. It's not complicated. If you call a person over to your house to fix your plumbing, and you say, hey, I need you to go ahead and fix the plumbing, they say, hey, well, I don't think I can do it. You say, okay, well, go ahead and leave, and I'll get somebody else who can. If you think this is complicated, if it's too hard for you, we will get your asses up out of here real quick, and we will pick somebody else that can do it, and they will adhere to every single demand that we are making today. Power to who? Power to the people. 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 Hold these people accountable. Thank you very much.
Hello, y'all. My name's Scoop. Today I'm gonna be talking about strategy 4, community healing and healing from policing. Over the last 9 months plus of my participation, the common question often arose: what does community healing look like? The fastest, easiest way to let you know what it looks like is thinking about it as this healing in the form of a bike. Bikes are similar to us in the way that they need to be. There's a lot of parts that need to go together to be able to function and go down the road correctly or move through your life correctly. Without proper handlebars, it is very difficult to steer through life correctly.
That's correct.
What does public safety look like to me? What does public healing look like to me? Well, it looks like to me is black and brown kids feel comfort when they hear the police sirens ring through their neighborhood, not hide behind bushes, duck in cars, or open the screen door and go back inside.
Come on.
Community healing is not helping me up when you knock me down. It's not knocking me down in the first place. The time is now. Like others before me, these recommendations are not wants, they are needs. We don't want change, we need change.
That's right.
All my life, I've seen many people with bikes that don't function correctly, but they still find a way to continue on down their road. What we need to do is work together, push these recommendations through, and fix each other so we can all go down the road together.
That's right.
I don't have much else to say, but these are needs. Again, they are not wants. We need these recommendations to move on. We need these recommendations to heal each other and heal the world we're in. Thank you.
Right, man.
And I'm intimidated to come behind all these great speakers. I've been asked, because the presenter was unable to make it today, to address strategy number 5. And I want to start off by reading to you the definition, and I think this is a bridge from what Brother Scoop was talking about and what strategy 4 and 5. Here's the definition that we worked from as it relates to what is public safety. And our definition is: public safety ensures that all members of the community decide how to organize a social environment that provides the freedom to live and thrive with the protection and support of social, physical, mental, and economic well-being. Safety is not a function of armed paramilitary forces with proven track record of racism and violence. Public safety prevents, reduces, and heals harm. The 5th strategy that we have says very simple: to expand the role of community in establishing meaningful independent oversight, improving accountability, training law enforcement, and creating public safety policy. And I'm going to take that bit by bit. Right now, and we were blessed in this city to have Nick Mitchell as our independent monitor, and I think he deserves a round of applause, even though he's moved on. Did a phenomenal job in light of the realities. But as it stands right now, the mayor of Denver appoints the sheriff, he appoints the chief of police, he appoints the director of safety, and he appoints the independent monitor. So everyone in the system is appointed by the same person. They each answer to him. The watchdog, the oversight individual, the oversight department needs to be separate from the individuals who are appointing the police, the chief of police, as well as the sheriff, as well as the director of safety.
Come on.
So one of our key recommendations is to make the Office of Independent Monitor actually independent.
That's right. Come
Another
on.
challenge that we've had with the independent monitor, thank you. Another challenge that we've had with the, I would say don't stop, I would say thank you for clapping. I wouldn't say that to stop. But another challenge that we've had with the Office of Independent Monitor is their ability to get unfettered access to all of the data and all of the information regarding investigations. The independent monitor should not be dependent and relying on the police department to give them the information that they need to conduct investigations.
Come on.
You know, when a prosecutor is prosecuting a case or investigating a case, they don't rely on the defendant to produce all the information. They are able independently to do subpoenas and independently to gather information and independently. If it's an independent monitor, then these functions need to be independent.
That is correct.
But even before we get to the area of independent oversight, one of the things that we really have to be considerate of is how are our police officers trained? How do they receive their training? Who does this training in the first place? If the police department, if law enforcement are supposed to serve the community, then it only stands that community should be involved in actually recommending and developing training curriculums
Come on.
and training programs for officers.
Come on. Come on.
Not only should they be involved in developing the curriculums and the training, they should also be involved in actually doing the training.
That's right.
We have so many qualified people. We just heard from someone from the Second Chance Center with lived experiences, individuals from marginalized and minority communities, individuals, people from the LGBTQI plus community who can speak and can actually provide the training rather than having those who have no lived experience, whose entire life revolves and has only been in law enforcement, training other law enforcement how to interact with community. Now, in my opinion, that doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. So this final recommendation says, let's get community actually involved in every level and in every aspect of the law enforcement that are supposed to be serving their communities. When you go to a restaurant, they don't tell you what you're going to eat. You tell them what you need and what you want them to serve.
That's right.
You look at the menu, you say, this is what I want. And then you also, many times if you're like me, and my wife gets so upset with me sometimes because I'll send the food back and I'm like, I want it this way because I'm paying for it. Well, guess what, my friends? You are paying for your law enforcement. And we as a community, which we have done in this report of over 112 recommendations, is to say, this is what we want from our law enforcement. This is what we want from our sheriff. This is what we want from our elected officials. We are the customers. We are the consumers, and we want to be involved in every aspect of public safety, from the training all the way through the oversight. This is how you strengthen communities. This is how you reinstitute training. And I am so glad for each of the speakers, because this is, again, is not a request. This is not us coming with hat in hand saying, would you please, sir? Would you please, ma'am? No, this is a demand. This is us saying that we have been sitting on the sideline too long, allowing whatever happens to happen, and enough is enough is enough.
Yes.
If we can't get it accomplished now, after the murder of George Floyd, then somebody please tell me, when can we get it done? If we can't get it done now, when you bring all the community together and you have a spectrum of voices representing organizations and viewpoints, if we can't do it now, then somebody please tell me, when can it get done?
Come on.
If not now, then when? I echo in conclusion the words of the great Dr. Martin Luther King, which is, we are living in the urgency of the now.
That's right.
Now is the time. And so I want to thank each of you for coming out, for being a part. Associate Gaitan is going to close us out, and then we're going to move into City Hall.
Power to the people! Chant with me, si se puede! Si se puede! Si se puede! Si se puede! Thank you for joining us here today. This is a very comprehensive, holistic look for policing in our city. 112 recommendations that came from the Reimagine Policing Task Force, which is a group of over 50 plus individuals, organizations, groups that came together from a very diverse group of people, very diverse geographically, even covering all areas of the city. And we need you to march in with us to speak on it with City Council and ask them to take a look at all the package. This comes as a comprehensive package, and we ask that you ask them to take a look at it that way and not piecemeal it and take it apart, but rather take it comprehensively the way that we intend it to be. So with that said, we're going to wrap up. We want to thank the press and the media and everyone here. Please share from your social media pages out into other neighbors and friends in the city of Denver to take a look at these 112 recommendations. Thank you. Have a good night.
Before y'all leave, Denver voters, ballot measures.
You too. All these people. I know. It's been so long. I know. We've never met. We've never met in person. Yeah, we definitely haven't. So it's like, oh, let me. I know. It's like when you're on the screen, everyone's the same way. I know. It's like, oh, yeah. You too. Yeah. Good turnout for sure. Yeah, I can't recently. But I have a 5 to your point of the short notice, but I love it. Yeah. Well, great to meet you again. Maybe we'll grab lunch at some point. I would love that. That would be great.
It's like it's all
Yeah, I think so. Can we go?
I'm gonna try to
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm carrying each other.
So I'm not.
I'm also like you look my daughter's live on. Yes, yes. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
And zoning is alive and well, and it is, and we're calling those people out who need to be called out, and we're getting so I'm glad it was resolved.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let us know.
I will let you know, but I'm saying I want to say thank you because I know that we're getting somewhere. In particular, Dr. Aisha. She's like, that was the first contact girl who made me.
Free air,
All right.
Hey, do you know, can anyone just go into
yeah, for sure. As long as it's gotta be, yeah, it's gotta be cool. Nice to meet you. No, you're good. Because I kind of think that I heard it. And I didn't know.
And then I would also like that. But you know,
Like, I get what I'm saying, like, but it's you know what I'm saying, like,
I know who you were. You're
Thanks for joining, folks. There's lots of great stuff going on. David's over here doing some interviews. We're getting signatures. Carrie Joyce hanging with the people. More power to the people. So, Telemundo's here. Have a great day. Thanks for hanging out.